From August 1977 to September 1978, a series of events took place which stunned the nation and have subsequently become one of the world's most shockingly infamous poltergeist cases.
You understand that you really shouldn't be in this house?
That was a very strange house, and something very strange was going on there.
Everything that you know about poltergeists occurred in that house.
They were scared out of their wits. They just didn't know what was going on.
Reports of levitation.
Floating around the room in mid-air, and it frightened the life out of her.
Possession.
There was no doubt that the voice was coming from Janet herself.
Come on, my name's Morris. Let me hear you say it. Morris.
Furniture and objects being moved and thrown when nobody was around.
A sofa would flip over or a chair would move across the room.
Just couldn't document everything on this case. I mean, things happening absolutely all the time.
This was unlike any case that had gone before and left a permanent mark on all those that were involved. This is the story of the Enfield poltergeist. In 1980, a book entitled This House is Haunted was published and recounted the Enfield investigation in explicit detail. However, the book's author, Guy Lyon Playfair, got involved in the case quite by chance.
I had experience of a very long and lively poltergeist case in São Paulo, Brazil, and I wasn't really hoping to do any more. We happened to have a lecture at the Society for Psychical Research, which I was a member of, on the subject of poltergeists, as it happened, and I was sitting right next to another new member called Maurice Gross, whom I hardly knew except to say hello to. And at the end of the lecture, Maurice jumped up and said, "I'm investigating a very interesting case right now, and I need some help." And there was a resounding silence. So I turned around and said, "Don't mind helping out for a couple of days or a week maybe." And that ended up 14 months.
Maurice Gross was investigating disturbances at the home of single mother Peggy Hodgson and her 4 children. It was a normal council house like 1,000 others across North London. However, on the evening of the 30th of August 1977, this normal family home bore witness to some decidedly abnormal activity.
Well, the activity started on the 30th of August 1977. Janet complained that her bed was wobbling, and also her brother Peter's bed was also wobbling as well. And the mother just ignored them, just thought, they're just getting up to stupid stuff.
But the following night, things became even more bizarre.
On the next night, the 31st of August, that's when other people started to experience what Janet and Peter were experiencing. And quite simply what happened, it was around about 9:30, Mrs. Hodgson put the children to bed, and then all of a sudden she heard it's like a crash.
Peggy Hodgson, the mother, went up to her daughter's room to chastise them for making a lot of noise and for actually staying up late at night.
When she went to leave it, a chest of drawers by the door pulled itself out as if trying to obstruct her, and she pushed it back and then it pulled itself out again.
Undeterred by that, she tried to push the chest of drawers back against the wall, and she successfully did that, and then all of a sudden it started to move back out again. And this time when she tried to put her weight behind it, she couldn't move it at all. It was like some other force was pushing it.
Peggy and the children were terrified, and not knowing what to do, turned to their neighbours, Vic and Peggy Nottingham, for help.
The Nottinghams didn't really know what to do, for the best. They tried to calm down the Hodgsons, but that was having no real effect because of the things that they experienced.
Even on that first night, they consulted with the neighbours, or they went over in terror to their neighbour's house, to Vic Nottingham. He went to investigate and he experienced things.
Eventually, I think it was Mr. Nottingham decided that the only people that could really come out was the police.
On the evening of the 31st of August 1977, The police came to Green Street and were able to convince Mrs. Hodgson to re-enter her house.
Just two police officers arrived and they did a tour inspection of the house. And at first nothing happened, there's nothing untoward.
But it wasn't long before the activity started again. A large armchair apparently moved unassisted about 4 feet across the living room floor.
PC Heaps, we've got her recollection of the events on record as witnessing the levitation of a chair, the movement of a chair.
I was impressed by the statement made by the woman police officer, because she seemed to have seen something quite clearly, which was a chair that moved, apparently without any propulsion, and she investigated to make sure it hadn't got something attached to it. I thought that was quite a clear, lucid report, and also very courageous of her to speak out when probably she was the subject of a lot of mockery after that.
Enfield case was documented from day one when they called in the police. That's not bad, I mean, to get a testimony of a police constable on the first day.
When people report seeing things like that to you, that's one thing, but when trained observers like police officers witness these things and then they actually sign written statements, you know, to the effect that, you know, that's exactly what they saw, it adds more weight to these sort of cases.
On Thursday, 1st of September 1977, at approximately 1 a.m, I was on duty in my capacity as a policewoman when I received a radio message to Green Street, Enfield. I heard the sound of knocking on the wall that backs onto the next door neighbour's house. There were 4 distinct taps on the wall and then silence. The eldest son pointed to a chair which was standing next to the sofa. I looked at the chair and noticed that it was wobbling slightly from side to side. I then saw the chair slide across the floor towards a kitchen wall. It moved approximately 3 or 4 feet and then came to rest.
But despite first-hand experience of this alleged supernatural phenomena, the police were powerless to help the family.
They were very considerate, they were very nice to the family and said that this really wasn't a police matter. They couldn't find anybody breaking the law. They were anxious to help if they could, and they really couldn't.
Over the next 3 days, these strange events continued for Peggy and her children. Plastic, toy bricks and marbles flew around, seemingly of their own accord, and when picked up, they were hot to touch. A vicar and a local medium visited the house, but were unable to help.
They were scared out of their wits. They just didn't know what was going on. They'd never heard of the word poltergeist. In fact, the girl used to call it the poltergeist, and they had absolutely no idea of the same thing happening to anybody else. These things are not amusing for the people who are having them.
There were relations of the family who I met, and they said that if they sat on a chair it got twisted around, or a child got apparently thrown from a chair into the middle of the floor.
Well, they always come in the same order, which is interesting. It's as if the poltergeist was reading from a script. You know, you start with knocking, rapping on the walls, and then you get small objects being thrown, and then you get larger objects being thrown, and then you get tables and chairs turning over, sometimes completely, flip-flop.
The family felt confused, terrified and alone. More than anything else, they were asking, why us?
It's very hard to tell why it should be any particular victim, because the experts will all tell you that you've got to have a tension in the family and break up of the parents and so on.
Poltergeist activity has been noted for occurring in places where there's a bit of tension in the atmosphere, you know, where there's a bit of unrest in the family, or there's there's some sort of trauma that the whole family are experiencing at the time. And in this case, with the Hodgsons, you know, that was part of the course.
It was quite turbulent, quite negative because of this early split between the parents.
There had been a break-up in the family, but then practically every other family is broken up nowadays, but you don't get every other family having a poltergeist. They are very rare.